Did you see Cheeto's tentacles behind him, his frills swinging absent-mindedly? They were like little rods attached to a stalk, more like little stalk HLA fixes attached to a longer stalk. She also rocked her ruffles. Their limbs are stems. Ron didn't understand. Stalking Cheeto agreed to have his tentacles straightened out in an attempt to display a literal stockpile of tendons and muscles to move them around. How does it work? Jade's frills fell back as he tried to visualize it less clearly. I said. HLA winced, and her frills giggled in her species version. I'm not sure they could make their short part cover the booty and open. I can't imagine how they found the sled in the gap. All three sparkled. Galeon looks roughly like an octopus, with a large frill on the back of its head. The creatures were pale blue or green, and their frills glowed with phosphorescence in the distant past. The frills had served to frighten away predators, but now they were mostly just a means of expression. I don't think they need to worry about that. Cheeto said, smart. They are omnivorous on the ground. Soil, bones, and grunts are creepy, and they eat plants. How is it possible for terrestrial species to reach space? For all I know, Cheetos bents say they're first, and they can't even hold their breath like a tan. Are the poor sex unable to cope with pressure changes, or their organs explode without very specific atmospheric conditions? They need special equipment to survive in the water. Unreal said, Gorin. Yes. HLA. Pathetic. Her frills turned again, but not as pathetic as their little canes. Stubbs, don't be cruel, Hell Cheeto admonished. Humans have come to the ocean of stars themselves and are becoming our guests. The crow waved 3 tentacles toward the southeast airlock, one at each end of the vast cavernous oval that formed the Sky Swimmer's hull. The ship is a large open space, 700 feet long and 350 feet in its widest position. The 36 Galeon swimming crew wandered to tilt the engine to monitor environmental control and perform all other Maria tasks to ensure Sky's safety in the starry heaven. HLA and Gron should take care of their duties, but the tension makes them better. These 3 people encountered very few species, and most of the species they encountered were like them. Slant pods are not the only intelligent species, but they are one of the few that can build and operate tools. Of course, they are the most common form of space-clouding life. I don't think she's cruel. Cheeto Gron arrived in Hess's defense. You can't deny the human sound. Chio's frill twitching, equivalent to quivering eyebrows, quivering and weird. Ugh. His tentacles dragged awkwardly to his disadvantage. Thank you. Gron Hell ran past and pressed her tentacles against Gron in a gentle gesture of love. It was all he could do to keep his frills from swaying, and Gron was absolutely sure that HLA was the most beautiful and amazing being in the Star Ocean, or any ocean for that matter. They had been best friends since hatching, and every day Gron reveled in her presence, knowing how lucky he was to know such a being, but he never admitted it out loud. HLA deserved better than Poresi, like Brian's slow movie. A tentacle-savvy Gron who knew him almost as much as he knew HLA suspected the other male knew exactly how Gron felt. Gron appreciated his silence. Just be careful, okay? Gleason turned his gaze to the ocean. I don't want us to shock our new friends. Are we sure they are friendly? Most game pods ask each other well, regardless of species, but the others not so much. What happens if they decide to attack with what was asked, Hyla? They have no poison, no pincers, and no tentacles. They can't even use their teeth, because they will drown if they expose their mouths. Oh, the griffin idly grabbed a sled that swam by. The small fish were his favorite food, and they were plentiful in the carefully composed ecosystem of the Sky Swimmer. They sound a little helpless, don't they? They couldn't be that bad, Cheeto thought. They were the dominant species in their home world. Whether they are superior or inferior must be doubted. You said that they are connected to the Earth. Did they even go to sea? I have no clue. Cheetah recognizes that the life-giving world is primarily oceanic. She reminded him that these humans might be the dominant form in their environment, but that environment was probably only a small fraction that emerged from the water. "I don't know," Cheetah repeated. "We'll see soon enough," said. Gron warning rang through the ship's water, and the sea seemed to open. 3 of them swam. They are not alone. Almost all the water monsters on the ship eagerly rushed to the sea, eager to see the strange creatures that were approaching, could spill out of the siphon. He and his friends covered the distance in seconds. Unfortunately, they were on the other end of the skies. They were among the last to arrive. The sea gate opened, and the 3 swam into the ship. They were the strangest things Groan had ever seen. Hela was right. Humans are made of slender stems extending from their bodies. In 4 places, the limbs were made of stiff stems connected by some sort of hinge. The lower limbs were longer than the upper pair and ended in fins. No, not fins, Graffin realized. Not real fins anyway. They are made of some kind of polymer. Perhaps people can't swim with nature's subsidiaries, making Geffen notice that the black things that cover people are not leather or scales. It is a kind of synthetic coating, possibly to prevent beings from becoming wet. He knew they were land animals, but he couldn't think of a creature that couldn't survive contact with water, and it was strange that the black substance covering the entire creature was safe for the area. In the spherical projection at the top of the creature, the orb appears to contain a human's sense organs, a version of his head. Bronn may have seen a pair of eyes behind the transparent objects, and he couldn't see their mouths or scent organs, but a tube led from the front of the orb to a set of tanks strapped to the back of their midsection. The strangest thing is what is at the end of their upper limbs. Each has a roughly square, flat appendage, for short, thin wooden posts extending from the top of the appendage, and one thicker wooden post extending from the sides. They are definitely what people use to replace tentacles. They look funny. No wonder Hela is so funny. Each stump was made of 2 or 3 short rods connected by hinges. Bronn imagined they would move enough to curl around a small object, but he doubted they would do well. They certainly cannot compete with the firm grip of his tentacles or the crushing force of the pincers used by other species. They look awkward and invalid. They are also very small. The longest deposition route can exceed 2 or 3, and it's a shame that you feel a small number on the long card. For humans, sexual behavior, sexual deformation, and sexual behavior are no wonder that they are on Earth. If his tentacles are too short, he will not try to show his bravery. Tail. When they leave the sea, this is a clumsy movement that is very slow. Look, one of the Grimm pulled the handle. The sea locks moved quickly, closing off the human swim and coming a few meters closer to Graffin. Then his companions moved until their false fins pointed to the bottom of the boat, and they discovered that they were larger than he thought. Be great. The largest was nearly 6 feet long, an ancient primal instinct, a prickly sea urchin, larger creatures to be avoided. He pushed the feeling down. These people may be taller than him, but they were slow and clumsy. He doubted they could catch him, and there was no way they could hurt him, and if they were big, they would be helpless against Gon, tentacles, and industry. In addition to them, his beak also appears as a friend. Finn had his first human contact 2 months ago. They collaborated multiple times on all accounts. The creatures were strange, but the friendly human technology was very different from the Gleon, and the resources they used were different enough that there was no fear of competition and no signs of aggression. If anything, they seemed excited and eager to please the average person by lifting and waving one of their ridiculous upper appendages. Hi. The voice came through the Gunna FARP implant. Implants use radio waves to move between Glane and various heavenly swimmers. They also act as translators when dealing with other species. My name is Dr. Julia Joe, and I am a marine anatomy researcher. She turned her upper body and pointed one of her stubs at the human to her right. This is Dr. Great Irvin, our structural technology designer. She stubbornly nodded and pointed to the left side of the other person. We do not know these words. She said not to translate. Not to translate. Can you explain why the person turned their head and grown realized they were looking at each other? Dr. Julia didn't answer. Yes, I think the untranslatable is a control point used by territorial defenders. The untranslatable details of the group that protects us from aggression and swimming, Leader TAA, remain for still thinking. Then she waved her tentacles in understanding. You mean marauders. The untranslatable Arthur Mackenzie. Is your predator's defense sacrificing humans and watching each other again? I still don't think this is necessary. Dr. Julia Cho claimed people suggested a strange movement that made his stomach closer to his head. I do not agree with your document, but this is not my appeal. Technically, this was a territory defender operation. I'm still no translator. Doctor. Juliet's show continues to look at the victim of predation protection, Arthur Mackenzie, who lifts his limbs and shows his stump to another person. Hello. The director of swimming would like to send all the information. You should be grateful that you only set him up with me. The third spoke. Do you two really want to have this conversation right now? He waved stupidly at the school of gleons that surrounded them in front of our new friends. Why don't you have a conversation and ask who the swim team leader is at TAA? Whether you have a secret you want to hide or not. A third party didn't say it, and it's rude to argue in front of strangers. We tried to put the best bottom pendants here. Oh, speaking of TAA, we also try to avoid conflicts with other species. The school must appear united if it does not want to be a victim. My feelings were expressed directly. Arthur Mackenzie. There was a slight hint of sting in his tone. It was quiet. Brain suspects people communicate, and in any case, Dr. Julia Cho. I heard you like our music. Vultures, do you want to see me play some music? Wince with excitement. He heard these sounds, made by humans during first contact. People gave Green what they called the complete works of Mozart. It has played every celestial swimmer in the sea of stars. Oh, the tide. Yes, please swim. The TAA leaders spoke on their behalf. Then Dr. Julie Jo held out the device that was strapped to her stomach like all things human. It had a strange shape, a huge, curved thing connected to a long, flat area. A stiff, thin wire tensioning cord runs from top to bottom. I still believe that you are transporting the guitar into the water, PhD. Irving complained. You know it will be destroyed after that. There is a good reason for this. Dr. Julia Cho told him. She put the guitar in her upper limbs and stopped strumming her false fins as she allowed herself to sink her stubs. She placed herself on the thin wires, and a stub plucked one of them to a short height. The guitar made a loud noise. People say they are not meant for underwater use. Strings do not resonate equally. Her stump moved again, plucking more strings. A comfortable, rhythmic set of shades came out of the guitar, but this should be enough to show how we get our songs to people. Blaine followed the song she played. It wasn't that Griffin had experienced Mozart's full work, but it was easy and comfortable. It is also exciting to look at the roots of people with high speed and accuracy, as the Viney of Sciaxy will know if these creatures are not as unfavorable as he imagined. For the next few minutes, Bliscon heard his song, the second game pod music, and the recordings of several great swimmers in the world. He had never imagined a creature that used machinery to make a voice, nor had he seen such dexterity in a limb that wasn't a tentacle. When Dr. Juliao finished playing, the whole school of Gleon danced wildly. Griffin had been hit several times by shaking freeze and flailing tentacles, and he was pretty sure he'd accidentally hit a few people. Several of his friends, among many others, actually collided while flying back and forth with glee. I thought you were a hot dog for predator protection, Arthur Mackenzie said, looking at him with a face of fake genie pleasure. She turned her head in sharp surprise as all the lions began to speak at once. This is a great singing tool. Does the clarinet resonate with the melodies that swarm around humanity and its wonderful musical instruments? Predator defense victim Arthur Mackenzie wrapped his bottom around an object strapped to the side of his stomach, but released it moments later. It took swimming leader TAA a few minutes to calm down. Everyone was in good spirits and could have had the most impressive talks, TAA said. I didn't know your stems were so flexible. Dr. Julia Cho sounds confused. She looked down at her appendages. Oh, they're called fingers. They're the adaptation that made us the dominant species in our world. Really, TAA was questionable. I don't mean to disparage them, but they hardly seem that useful. It's Dr. Smith's shop, though. Erwin had us manipulate tools with our fingers and use them to forge better tools. Without them, we would never have reached the stars. Oh, TAA did their best to sound impressive. It is very good. You must be very proud of them. Oh, a man rubs his face against the back of his head. Of course, yes, we are very proud. Do you want to try the guitar? Dr. Julie Cho changes the subject. She emits a high-pitched trill. Her frills vibrate rapidly, and Dr. Julie Cho pulls out a musical instrument, and the swimming director wraps herself in it. Her tentacles felt along the machine until she found the chords. She stroked them but couldn't pluck them quite like a human. She tried again and again. Finally, she put the guitar at the bottom of the ship. Her 3 tentacles slowly and carefully pushed it down. She slipped the tentacles on one of the cords, pulled out the suction cup, and grabbed the rope. TAA pulled out the tribe again and tried to release him to see what was happening to the swimming driver. No, his warning was too late. Frustrated, TAA pulled as hard as she could. The rope broke. Grand stared at it in shock, and the swimming leader broke the music tool. He shocked shockingly, and the rest of the grain crumbled with him. It does not matter. No problem. Dr. Julia Cho held out her fingertips. The guitar is in pieces. HLA wailed Chatlow and several other trillets are in agreement. It's okay, the man repeated. I'm very sorry. TAA looked piteously at the broken instrument. I did not do it on purpose. Well, yes, people insist that strings break all the time. Again, said Dr. Julie Cho. They do it all the time. Usually we just replace them, but this time I didn't have spare strings with me. The man made the same strange move the other did earlier, raising his midsection closer to his head. In reality, this guitar wouldn't last long underwater anyway, and I brought it here in the hope that it would ruin TAA's view of people. Why do such a thing? Doctor. Julia Chow explained that this is a cultural exchange. I wanted you to see it, but it will break the music tool. It is very exciting. It's just a tool. They talk about people, saying that people are easily produced. Not so easy. Dr. Owen whispered, Dr. Julia Joe, facing the other person. You know that everything you say will come across correctly. Now I know that Dr. Owen shakes his head from side to side. Sorry, Chow. I just hate to see a good guitar fall like this. There is a good reason for this. Doctor. Julia Chow reminded him. Her return to TAA is the best reason why we want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us. I think the experience will be worth losing the guitar. You are very strange, TAA told her. We have more to show. You said that Dr. Julia Cho has that mindset. Predator's defense sacrifices Arthur Mackenzie to intercept Starbrand. This is Mackenzie. There was a long pause. One has to listen to someone in their boat, and I would ask the swim leader to stand on the Predator defense line. Victim Arthur Mackenzie turns his head to TAA swim leader TAA. We have 3 ships coming out of hyperspace and heading towards us. Do you know about this? 3 ships were in panic, and what ships were sacrificed by Griffin to tell her, just like you, the shy swimmer, so that it was good? Usually it is a safe field, but a person can be too careful. I agree with the people. Can you talk to them through your implant? They did not respond to our cheers. Certainly, TAA activated a general broadcast greeting for friends. What brings you here today? Without a response, Griffin switched from channel to channel on his implant. He could hear other people's voices in the school, whispers among themselves, or other sky swimmers calling out to the new ship. He didn't hear the sound of his frills pressing against his head. No answer. TAA moves again, and we must reach the distance of the school for visionaries. People followed much more slowly, and Grapham looked into one of the shots. 3-day swimmers come into view. They were moving faster than a swimming leader should be. It was Cheeto, his voice shaking. Look there. Siak Gran took a closer look at one of the sky swimmers. The ring had been cut around the edges of its sea bow and the damage repaired with other material. The griffin trilled in alarm kennels, and the rest of the school picked up the cry. Frill's flattened tentacles twitched in panic. People finally reached a distant place. What? Predator Defense sacrificed Arthur Mackenzie. What happens? You have to leave the leader to swim. TAA encouraged the person. You have to leave now. Why is man pressed? Who they are, breeders, TAA hangers, suffering, who are predators. The tower explains that the sea is a place of exchange. Celebrities see it even more. Cal would prevent their offspring from competing in the world's oceans by reproducing too quickly to maintain their population. They send their children across the interstellar sea to capture ships and worlds from people like us, so they are hostile and very understanding of victims of the Predator's defenses, Arthur Mackenzie said of his brand of starship. This is Mackenzie. The traveling ship is hostile. I repeat, incoming ships are hostile. He listened for a few seconds, then nodded in understanding. Mackenzie is out. You need to call TAA quickly. You need to get back to your ship. The Star Brands disconnects from your sea lock. The person told her they were going to attack the enemy there, which TAA frills flared and shook. No, you have to go. You can't fight Cal. Why not ask people to look at themselves? She shouted at the creature, You are slow. You have no beak, no pincers, no spine. Foul will tear you to pieces. On land, you may be D, but in the sea, you are harmless. Her tentacles criticized the fact that my school was too late, but we can still spend time with you. You can escape. No, we can say the victim. If this person wants to fight, we will not let you die. Stress clashes and terrible. Sharp teeth? No, not people. Strange noise, I mean their ships. He explained what weapons they have on their ships. The TAA was shaking. Their ships are sky floaters. They will have strings with strong magnets. They will pull our ships together and go through the sea. Watch lines with magnets. Defense against predation, sacrifice, and Arthur Mackenzie, headed. Okay, good. What else was TAA looking at him with confusion? What do you mean? They have no other weapons to ask people about. Defense untranslatable projectiles are energy weapons. I don't know what those guys were talking about. The head of the swim, Predator Defense, sacrificed himself to relay these messages to his ship. He heard the answer. Well, celebrity brands are unplugging and getting ready. We need to get skyscrapers. We can't say that swimming leads to TAA. We can't open a person's eyes wide and then narrow them. Why not? When the swimming leader rejected us, we explained that we quit and demolished the dynamic corner. Phelan will be over us, you part. For the first time, a person seems shocked why it is a cultural exchange. She retorted, We want to show you structural technology designers that banish the curse of humanity. Sorry, human swimming leader, TAA stroke, calming tentacles across the midsection, sacrificed by Predator Defense. Sorry to die with our interstellar exhibition. This is McKenke, a human boat. Brian cannot move his sky swimmers. Engines were dismantled and cultural exchange was suspended. She said, and after another pause, Mackenzie understood, and Griffin watched the human ship leave. This star sign is almost as strange as the creature it bears. It was small, only 200 feet long and 40 feet wide. It looks like a rectangular tube with blocked appendages regularly protruding from the body. It moves by expelling material from propellers. It is neither as agile as the sky swimmer nor as graceful as the sky swimmer. Predators are closer now. 2 of them changed course to intercept the human vessel before the helpless sex could escape, and the 3rd began to slow down. It would be nearly stationary as it joined Griffin, sky swimmer, which it would do for the next 20 seconds. A flash of light caught Griffin's attention. 2 objects ejected from the star sign. They are very small, the purple flames are very fast, and they are behind predator ships. When they hit ski swimmers, they reached their goals in less than a second, tore off the open water from a 30-foot hole, and the gravity exploded from a 30-foot hole. It is the latest. Take me that tremor. Arthur Mackenzie explained that they called the victims of torpedo predators and explained the chemical pilot tablets that did not provide explosive fees. He raised a finger. It was Mackenzie, and he understood. He shook his head and broke the news. What is it? It was Cheeto who asked, and TAA was still looking at the enemy skies in confusion. Both victims were completely relaxed. Now water and dying agony flowed helplessly in the great void. With no survivors, the star can't risk shooting the last sky swimmer. Predator sacrifice, Arthur Mackenzie told him, and as he spoke, metal tentacles extended from the battleship, and the sky swimmer shuddered as the magnetized tendrils gripped. There were too many possibilities. They will also kill the ship. Tell them to talk about TAA anyway. We are all ready. Humans shook their heads again. Instead of being a call for swimming leaders, I was just an irresistible person. My order is to help remove the border until the star brand connects again and sends reinforcement forces. / is too slow, says that. You can't help her with 4 tentacles. Cheeto, Hyla Griffin, and another Gleon named Mango, because you are with people. Everyone else went out to sea, and the rest of the Gleasons were tossed out. With the predator defense sacrificing, Arthur Mackenzie began to swim behind them. Jetlo swam in front of his face to stop him. Stop people, nothing. You can do it. I'm a predator defense victim, the creature said. You don't know what I can do. He stared at the fat going away. Most of them have already reached port, but your swimming director is right. I guess I'm too slow to do anything good. Can you take me there? Are you crazy when the swim director says you want to stay here? Get there. How asked Griffin. I'll grab onto one of you, the human said. Maybe 2 of you can use that water jet thing you do and pull me to the sea. Look, absolutely did not say Cheeto the swim leader doesn't want us to do it, said Griffin. Griffin Cheeto protested. He's a predatory defense sacrifice. Griffin reminded him. This is what his swimming leader said. We died anyway. HLA added that she was trying to swim closer. What do we do now? Just don't bite, said the man. I'll catch you now. His blunt fingers reached out and wrapped around Griffin's tentacles, the creature's grip sending shivers of terror through Griffin's body. He thought the small pieces were fragile, but the force of their compression felt like the tweezers Griffin had suspected. Humanity has not used its full power either. Gon's instinct was to wrap his tentacles around the attacking creature and bite with his venomous beak. Resisting the urge, he reminded himself that the deformed being didn't mean he harmed victims. The other strains were wrapped around HLA. She flinched but stopped herself from biting the aliens in order. I have a good grip. Let's go to the beach and watch the vultures. She shook her frills. In return, he draws water into his cloak. He ran out, but his timing was out of sync with Hyas. At different times, they rushed forward, pulling people behind them. The crushing fingers clenched painfully, sending agony through Green's limbs. He forced himself to ignore the pain, Geffen and Hela, and tried again a 3rd time. They spray simultaneously into the sea. Look's progress has been much slower than GPH expected. People are hard, very hard. He must have weighed over 150 pounds. Predator defense victim tried his best to improve his progress, waving the fake fins at the bottom of his limbs as fast as he could, but it still took him almost 20 seconds to reach the lock on the other side of the ship. The metal melted into a circle in the middle of the ocean. There is no caustic heat or smell from the lock. If so, a vibration destabilizer should be used. The circle was 6 feet in diameter and surrounded by greenery, desperately trying to keep the lake gates closed. They traversed the damaged material, with half of the tentacles attached to the undamaged holes. The other half worked hard to lock the severed disc into place in the sea. This strategy is commonly used by dikers to fight predators. It almost never fails, but it's almost never better than not. Others noticed their arrival but were too busy to say anything. Even Swim, the leader of TAA, was in no hurry to comment. The Gray and the Mammoth are powerful, but they are already struggling with the power of the Kval. Left side of the metal plate. It was once a sea. He floats on vulnerability, locks his fingers set on the inner vertebral slice, squeezes his other fingers on the scraped holes, and the plate muttered unt. It was a terrifying display of power by the current HLA Trillette. Kval's changed tactics instead of pressing the pull disc. The human grabbed one side of the disc, but Flash couldn't get his red pincers into the new hole, squashing it and running away. 2 more pointed to the sea. The disc fell in, and the first zealot swam into the ship. The Kvalin is a terrifying combination of crustacean and 5-t-long fish covered in red kittens with 2 large pincers and a maw full of sharp, jagged teeth. Yellow tendrils hang just below the mouth. They were briefly shorter than Griffin's tentacles, but he knew they were stronger. The predator used them to guide the prey in his maze and manipulate other species of technology. Korn had no expectations for such a being. Its armored form is nearly impossible to pierce and is immune to poison, rains, classmates, panic, and spray. Human, the predator rushes forward with dual pincers, ready to grab and crush the predator's defenses. Sacrifice Arthur Mackenzie removed a small object from a pouch attached to his stomach. He pointed the object at the CV and grasped it with his fingers. The object makes a strange sound, as loud as an explosion. A ripple and air appear between the object and the cloud. A hole appeared under one of Carl's eyes, and the predator moved on, but it was already dead. Cultural exchange. The cry of the gestator. Humanity sees. The power of my trigger finger. More power flows from the sea. The predator's defenses were sacrificed, killing them one by one with brutal efficiency. The glands were stunned, and it finally spoke HLA. They are really proud of their fingers, aren't they? Griffin looked at the man in awe. His fear of the night disappeared, replaced by the fear of the man and his terrifying thimble, such a deadly predator. It even turns Val into helpless prey, and then the fear was replaced by something else. The hope that humanity was unstoppable, that he was on Griffin's side, and that Griffin would survive. This is called a gun. Predator defense sacrifice Arthur Mackenzie nonchalantly explains as he murders the predator. It uses a small explosion to run the projector with the enemy. They are usually not very well underwater, but I have had so many super beer bullets that he turned his spear to view the glane and pull it out. You know what doesn't matter. He discarded the item under the gun and replaced it with a similar 1-star brand. This is Mackenzie. Go ahead. He killed 2 more goblins to find out. He turned to TAA for help and reconnected with Star Brenda. In the second lock, 30 predator defense victims await us. Can you send someone to get them into HLA? Griffin commanded the swim leader, her frills fluttering in hope and relief as the Griffin and his friends jumped into the sea. Loch Geffen couldn't help but ask if you still thought their little bits were pitiful when they were closed. She said they were the most beautiful creatures in the universe, and she playfully stroked frills over him. I never said that.